G'day YouTube, how the heck are we doing? It is Foul Play here, back for some more modern action. So this is going to be the first league since Audacity was legal that we're not going to be running 4 copies of it. We have reduced it to 2. We've done so to try testing out Spider Umbra here. So 1-1 reach, Totem Armor. The main reason I want to get Spider Umbra into the deck is to have more copies of Totem Armor for into effects like Dress Down, into effects like Engineered Explosives, Blast Zone, etc. Outside of that, most of the auras are pretty self-explanatory. We have Wishboard one-offs for Spirit Mantle, for All That Glitters, for Griff Spoon, and for Cartouche's Solidarity. So most of those are going to be one-offs for Evasion. All That Glitters is an extra Ethereal Armor type effect without the first strike, and Cartouche of Solidarity is going to help give us Diabolic Edict protection into decks like Archon. Alright, so the main focal point of the deck is going to be Floofy Paws. We're not going to slam this thing on turn 2 and hope to throw every aura at it and have it all resolve and be good and just win. Maybe against like Tron on the play with, that's more viable, but most of the matchups you're going to be going in on your Bogle. If your opponent's going to deal with the board somehow, then you're going to get cards like Rancor and Sentinel's Eyes, which are play sets of, back from the graveyard. You're going to cast them with Floofy, and Floofy is going to go and search up another aura of the same mana value with a different name that comes onto the battlefield under Floofy's control. Now you can Batman and Robin, Floofy plus Bogle. So enchant the Bogle with, let's say, Rancor, and then search up a Sentinel's Eyes or some other 1 mana aura, some versatile aura with the Floofy. If you're expecting Floofy to get removed, you'll search up something like Sentinel's Eyes, which does come back. So you basically donate it onto your Bogle post removal. So with this sideboard as well, we've got the usual Leyline of Sanctity as the playset, and that's going to be protecting us from a discard, against that Rakdos mid-range deck. You've got Force of Vigor, which has playability, huge playability, against Amulet Titan, against Hammertime, and also against Leyline and Binding decks. Gadok Tig, good against Control, Tron, Leyline of Binding. And then we have the funky looking stuff. So Chalice of the Void in here is for Cascade. In there for when they're cascading to the 0 mana cards, Living End, Glimpse, and Rhinos. So going to be able to cast that on 0 without interrupting our own synergy. It's literally in there for those decks. There's no other real matchups that you could bring it in against. Maybe against Burn you could bring 1 copy in and try to get on 2, but that doesn't seem super viable to me. Also, Void Mirror is going to be good into Cascade as well, but this is also going to be good into Tron. So we've got a little bit of a split there on those cards. And Pithing Needle as a catch-all, maybe name Renin 6, so opponents can't reoccur beside you, plus Renin 6. Maybe name Blast Zone depending on the matchup, cards like that. Alright, so with all that said and done, let's get into the league. Alright, so we won the die roll here against Straight Shade, and see a reasonable looking 7, but there's no hexproof creature. I think if there's a second copy of Floofy, it would keep, but the single copy, I'll mulligan for something better. This definitely looks keepable to me. We'll bottom 1 scout and get into it. Alright, so I'm going to lead on the Horizon Canopy. This is going to be dealing a little bit more damage to us. If we want to search out a basic forest against a Blood Moon deck though, it could be wise. Looks like we might be versing Murktide here. Oh, okay. No, this is going to be the graveyard deck, right? The Underworld Breach. Alright, so we find another Horizon Canopy. And I think I'm willing to trade this Ragavan with the Scout with the Ragavan. So give that opponent the option. So it's like a Underworld or Undercity Breach, one of those cards. Plus, I think it's Grinding Station, and they load up their graveyard and combo off in some description or another. So opponent's actually thinking long and hard about this block. So unfortunately our opponent had some connection issues and they tried to reconnect for about 8 minutes before having to concede the match, and it's a pretty frustrating way to start the league, but a win's a win, I suppose. Alright, match number 2. We won the die roll. It's a very good looking 7. We'll go ahead and keep. MTG Bine is our opponent today. So we will lead on the Wooded Foothills. There's potential for us to search a basic plains with the Windswept Teeth. I think we do want access to double white most games though, so we won't be looking for a basic forest. Alright, opponent's a Mishra's Bauble deck. This one targeting themselves. And there's a Street Wraith cycle. Alright, here is Watery Grave as well. That one's tapping for black and Inquisition from the opponent. I assume they just take the aura that's different to the others, so they take Rancor, but they could also take Ethereal Armor. We'll see what they decide on. Alright, so they take Ethereal Armor. Bauble trigger, opponent draws, we draw, and that's not a great one. Alright, we do still have a rather aggressive attack here, so we're going to head and search plains here. And I suppose our opponent is on a shadow deck of some description. We don't currently have any form of evasion. Let's just hope the Death Shadows aren't in their hand, because it's not viable for us to give them all the time in the world. Otherworldly Gaze. I think some Dredge decks have been playing Otherworldly Gaze, right? So you can see more Street Wraith and more discard to the graveyard. I'm guessing they're trying to get towards a fatty Gurmog. Play Misty Rainforest, and it looks like they're passing to us. So this probably means they have a counterspell. I don't think we have a choice but to run All That Glitters into it, because we don't have another sequence of cards. Alright, well that resolves, which is nice. And I guess we're going to verse a Giant Shadow shortly, although I think if they had Shadow, they would have fetch shocked into casting it themselves. So, bit of weird stuff going on here. Searching basic island. End of turn, Consider. And we can see an extra copy of Consider was surveilled to the grave. Our opponent concedes the match. It might not be a Shadow deck. From what we've seen of it, it's got Street Wraith, which indicates Shadow, but we saw 2 copies of Inquisition instead of Thoughtseize. So it's entirely possible it's just a Dimir control deck, but the Street Wraith seems strange at that point. I think it's highly likely, despite what they are, that they have Gurmorg Angler. Alright, so with sideboarding, we're going to bring in Leyline of Sanctity to protect ourselves from their discard from any potential Diabolic Edict effects. And then we're going to look to just remove 1 Floofy Paws, 2 Spider Umbras, and I'm going to take out a Forest while we're on the draw. On the play, that might be All That Glitters, it might be a second Floofy. Depends what mood I'm in, I suppose. Sound looks like a good start. The auras aren't too aggressive because it's only attack for 3, but we have a lot of protection against what our opponent's up to, so let's go ahead and keep that. And we have the Flying in Griffspoon. We have a reoccurred aura through Counter Magic in Sentinel's Eyes. Hand's really strong. So Mishra's Bauble, and they have to target themselves here. Alright, and looks like they're leaving the fetch land uncracked. Mana's not the best draw. Let's go ahead and resolve Scout. Kind of finding an island into Otherworldly Gaze. Suppose if we had graveyard interaction like Rest in Peace, we could consider bringing it in this matchup, because pretty sure the graveyard is a strong resource for their deck. Underworld Breach, there it is. Oh well, that's what we thought we were versing in the first match, only a different constructed deck. Alright. Cracks the Polluted Delta. We see Watery Grave here. 1, 2, and Witch's Talisman. Alright, so he can pay 1, removing 1 of the 3 wish counters from it. Search your library for a card, put it into your hand, and opponent gains control of Witch's Talisman. Activate only during your turn. Okie dokie. I figured I'd go for a basic here, but it might have been better to hold up that fetch land for a potential second creature in case they interacted pretty hard. I think we're mostly safe either way though. Obviously drawing land wasn't the best thing in the world. Alright, so flashback on Otherworldly Gaze. Opponent already down at 12. Alright, and we see Lotus Field, Street Wraith, and Witch's Talisman all over that way. Opponent plays Lotus Field, sacking their other 2 lands. And, well, that's a bit of a dud draw now, isn't it? Alright, let's go ahead and Horizon Canopy. We'll crack that one immediately before casting Sentinel's Eyes in case we find a more aggressive aura. We do. It's going to be an attack for 6, half our opponent's life, so 2-turn clock. Alright, get in there and pass. Alright, do the shenanigans begin now? Kicks it off with a Consider. So it's most likely our opponent is on Twiddle Storm. They have interaction, or well, their win condition is primarily Grape Shot, which has Storm, deal 1 damage to target creature or player. Outside of that, they can potentially bounce our stuff with an Echoing Truth. I suppose a Brazen Borrower, bounce its Leyline of Sanctity to get themselves there. Opponent activates Witch's Talisman. Steam Vents in Shocked. Twiddle. Alright, so then now they get to untap. And Underworld Breach from hand, 2 blue mana floating. We do know that they have access to cards from their graveyard. They just need to escape 3 cards when they do this. So Twiddle, untapping Lotus Field. So the main question is, are they going to be able to combine enough spells, enough mana to firstly remove Leyline of Sanctity and secondly Grape Shot us for enough damage? Of course, I have no doubt that the deck has the ability to combo off 30 spells in 1 turn. It's just whether or not they'll do that here. So, Witch's Talisman from the grave. And Twiddle on Lotus Field this time, untapping. Alright, using the black mana floating for Witch's Talisman. Tapping for blue here. We can see their graveyard is dwindling, but opponent plays Tome Scour, milling 5 cards. Otawara is probably good to be in the grave because that's a card that could potentially bounce our Leyline. And they can't escape land, so that's good. So opponent mills 3 cards. With Dream, no. Which one milled 3 cards? I can't even catch that. Alright, Twiddle here, untapping. Alright, so casting Tome Scour, ditching some more stuff to the grave. We see Wish here, playing a card you control from outside this game until end of turn. So again, Tome Scour, milling 3 cards. 3 cards entered the exiled zone. So they're going to reoccur Tome Scour and Twiddle. And they can generate an extra 1 mana return from this interaction. They can indefinitely mill their whole deck. They've only got 19 cards left in their deck though. Tome Scour. We can see they left in copies of Fatal Push as well. Alright, and Twiddle on the Lotus Field. Exiling these 3. Tome Scour, exiling Gaze, Iok, and Talisman. Alright, again, Tome Scour. We see Breach, Polluted Delta Gaze to the grave. No cards left in their library now. Storm count's at 17 currently. Twiddle, untap. We see Echoing Truth now, bouncing Leyline of Sanctity to hand. So now they just have to play Grape Shot, which, I mean, they've got 3 cards in hand. I didn't see any mana floating there. I'm unsure how they cast that just then. There must have been 1 blue mana floating. Alright, opponent concedes the match here, so I guess they didn't have Grape Shot in their deck. So that was kind of fortunate. Maybe a bit of a misboard out. I mean, it doesn't seem right that they wouldn't have it in their deck because they have the red mana here. They have the Storm count at 20. Why would they take it out? I don't know what their win condition is if they take out Grape Shot. So seems a bit odd, but we'll definitely take the victory. Alright, so knowing it's Twiddle Storm, cards to potentially consider bringing in from the sideboard. You could actually look at playing Chalice on 1 against Twiddle Storm, and then their deck would pretty much die from that point forward. It would interrupt our own synergies, but it would interrupt our opponent's synergies. Weaknesses to this would be opponent bouncing the Chalice of the Void with either Otawara or Echoing Truth, which we know they have. Another option is potentially to bring in Force of Vigor. When your opponent starts casting these spells and when they're tapped out, you can destroy their Underworld Breach in response. And that's probably the way to go about it. So probably we should bring in like 2 to 3 copies of Force of Vigor. Taking out on maybe some of our expensive spells that are at 2 mana. And yeah, and looking to race, looking to protect ourselves with Leyline, looking to race where we can, and then interact with Underworld Breach with the Force when we can as well. Alright, so welcome back for the third match. We won the third die roll in a row versus Wizard Hat here. We'll keep this hand, and opponent is also keeping a 7. Alright, so Windswept Teeth into Plains from the opponent. Giver of Runes, so this is likely Hammertime. In a matchup like Hammertime, we really want Floofy Paws to do its thing. It could, I mean, what Hate Bears deck do you see running Windswept Heath in this day and age? It's not going to be Hate Bears, surely not. Alright, well, it's a brew of something because Lair of Hydra here. Devoted Druid, okay. Alright. Heliod combo by the looks of things. Well, we don't quite have the kill here, but we have a pretty reasonable start. Let's crack this one. I guess we can be semi-conservative with our life total. So this can fetch up Ethereal Armor. Bring that one to play, and then we can All That Glitters, and then we can Daybreak Coronet. Actually, maybe in case I have Solitude, I should have played Spirit Mantle there. I think maybe I played a touch loose there. Alright, let's attack in with Floofy Paws. Perhaps a little bit too eager to just smack for a million. Hopefully they're not running it. Fingers crossed. Alright, opponent does block, and they do get to fog 2 of the damage here. If that's all they're doing, then, you know, we still get to trample 13. We're still in a very commanding spot, putting them to 6. Alright, so no Solitude just yet. Could also be a Path to Exile in our near future. We'll see what they do. I mean, I don't think anyone's really playing Path at the moment, but maybe Prismatic or something. Vizier, okay. So opponent literally just got the combo here. That would really suck for us. Stoneforge Mystic, okay. Great. Viridian Longbow. So 1 damage to any target. So opponent can equip this for 3 mana, shoot our face for 31, and win the match. Bit lame. Alright, so this is going to be a matchup where Pithing Needle is actually going to be pretty reasonable. I'm not sure we want Leyline of Sanctity. I think that might just be overboarding a little bit. But we could bring in Force of Vigor for if they have like a Caldra Complete or something like that as well. Or the Caldra Complete has Indestructible, doesn't it? Yeah, Caldra Complete has Indestructible, so Force does not seem very good there. I think Pithing Needle is definitely good. Maybe we bring in Leyline of Sanctity to protect ourselves from being like shot out like that. It feels like they're going to have half of their decks. They're going to have the Heliod combo with life gain, and they're going to have the damage combo. Most of which can be switched off with Pithing Needle, but it's not hugely viable, right? I guess we trim on some of our expensive stuff. I don't think Daybreak Coronet is going to be super outrageously amazing here. All the glitters as well is just a bit expensive. And maybe it's just Spider Umbra. Alright, so let's bring in this for that. Get into it. Alright, well, we have protection from our opponent. We have a fairly aggressive hand with Leyline of Sanctity as with the Ethereal Armors as well. Fortunately, no Temple Garden. We have to rely on Basayu, so we can't double Ethereal turn 2. But we have protection against half their combo, I guess. Looks like our opponent decides on a 6 they're happy to keep. A Bogle pass. And plays Aether Vial, so maybe it is a Hate Bears deck. Maybe I'm wrong. Very interesting. Alright, so we'll attack for 3. It's likely Leyline's just not going to be very good here. Especially if they bring in enchantment interaction, which I guess they probably will. They're not a dedicated combo deck, it's entirely possible. Opponent fetches up a Forest, Devoted Druid onto the battlefield. Passing to us, we find Audacity. Let's go. Alright, and we can go ahead and attack for a bit. And then we just have to cross our fingers and have to hope our opponent doesn't combo us next turn. Oh, opponent's got a blocker for the Scout. I guess... I mean, attacking with it doesn't really matter. It's not doing a huge amount here. I guess it's a mistake, but I don't think it's a mistake that's going to win or lose games. Good news is opponent's untapped, which means no... I guess they could... if they have the mana combo, they can force a Vigor without anything. Opponent concedes though. Alright, so I guess Leyline of Sanctity was pretty good. They didn't have the enchantment interaction plus the infinite mana, so on Vizier of Remedies. It's possible after that we want to bring in Gadok Teague to protect our own Leylines from their removal, because it doesn't currently look to me like a Heliod deck. It looks to me like a combo deck, which possibly means Force of Vigor's a touch better too. I think Spirit Mantle's probably fine. Flying's probably fine. So toss up between cutting Audacity and Floofy in my opinion. Let's cut the Audacity. Alright, well, another Leyline hand. We're going to go ahead and keep. Looks like our opponent keeps too. Alright, so semi-aggressive. The main caveat to this game is going to be drawing our second mana source by turn 2. Alright, and turn 1 Aether Vial from the opponent. That is not a mana source. Get the hell out of here, Bogle. Alright, so Aether Vial gets ticked up to 1 counter. Temple Garden enters. There's our buddy Devoted Druid joining the party. And our deck is doing this to us. Lovely. Alrighty, so let's go ahead, give flying. Our percentage points just took a massive dive, by the way. Get in for 2. We're now at mercy of our opponent. Again, good news is Leyline of Sanctity is still sticking around. Flooded Strand. Is that just for white mana, or are we splashing a third? Just for plains. Oh, what is this? Luxior, Gyada's Gift. Gets 1/1. Equip creature gets 1/1 for each counter on it. Equip permanent isn't a planeswalker. And is a creature in addition to its other types. Equips planeswalker. Okay. So how's this work? They're getting -1 counters. It isn't a planeswalker and is a creature in addition to its other types. Gets 1/1 for each counter on it. So okay, so opponent can get infinite mana this way. Gotcha. So even though they've got neg 26 here, it's still a 0/2. Final Hour of Devastation for 23. Alright, there's going to be some shenanigans happening here. Dustwatch Recruiter, a 25-25 haste. Alright, well, our opponent wins. Good games to our opponent. Alright. funky deck. Not bad. I'm not sure if it's like competitive into the majority of modern, but it does look like a fun deck to play. So in hindsight, after seeing this combo, which I was not aware of, apologies, probably should have gone a little bit harder on the Force of Vigors, maybe brought in 2 to 4 copies of them. And yeah, that would have given us some sort of play around here. Obviously, not being able to unload our hand didn't really make a huge difference, but maybe if our opponent was a turn slower, it would have. Alright, welcome back for the 4th match. 4th dire in a row versus the Yoda here. It's a very good looking 7. We will keep. Looks like our opponent goes to 6 life. So Burgle pass. Opponent plays Seachrome Coast, Esper Sentinel. So this is just going to be Hammertime, right? Yeah, Ornithopter. Or is this just Affinity? I think this is Affinity, actually, because... Does Hammertime play blue-white? I think they have the reality chip. Let's just put out Floofy Paws. If we draw a land, we get close to killing them. I think just a point or 2 off. Ink Moth Nexus, and that doesn't reveal any more data. Alright, Sagada's Aid does. Attacks with Esper Sentinel. I would love to trade here. Please let us trade. Colossus Hammer, yeah, sure. That's fine. So our best draw would be a land. That is not the land we're looking for. So we don't have the ability to pay for this really and to represent a decent clock. So we're just going to let that resolve. Get our Ethereal Armor. Then we can go Sentinel's Eyes. And we can get Hyena Umbra here to help protect our guy. And now because we have Vigilance, we can attack for 10. With, you know, First Strike Trample. Alright, so that's a decent spot to be in. Our opponent does have this nifty trick where they can hammer the Inkmoth Nexus and then they can reactivate it. And the Colossus Hammer reads loses flying. But upon the reactivation of the hammer, it gains flying and it will actually keep flying for the remainder of the turn. Which is pretty strong, which means they can kill for infect damage. Oh, does that mean I should have, I probably should have sequenced for Griff Spoon instead of the Ethereal Armor? I think I misplayed this. Apologies. Alright, opponent is attacking with a giant Esper Sentinel. Maybe not. Oh. Just gonna leave back block, so that's not gonna work out for the way you want it to, opponent. Alright, cool. I wonder what went on there, if they accidentally skipped to combat or what happened, but let's just go ahead and cast this one. It's possible they have Path to Exile. Think we negate this. Play 11 generic mana. Oh wait, no, we can't do that. Is this X is the power? Oh god, that's disgusting, man. I thought it was just pay 1. Spell Pierce? Oh, opponent, come on, man. Not like this. Alright, so I guess we were better off playing Cartouche and Sentinel's Eyes. And naturally we're 1 mana short, so we're going to be fogged from attacking for this turn. Alright, pass to our opponent. So I guess that line was greedy. We can Cartouche, get Audacity. We can Sentinel's Eyes, get Reach, get Flying. So either Spider Umbra or Griff Spoon. And we can be in a better position than what we were. Opponent with the second Esper Sentinel. If that's all they've got going on, I'm more than happy. That is fine by me. Alright, let's see what the response is to Hyena Umbra. We'll pay for one of them, so we won't pay for the first one. We will pay for the second one using Dryad Arbor. That's fine. And here we need to make sure that we... It's just Griffspoon is the best pick here. Now we can Sentinel's Eyes. We can get the other effect. We should have lethal in the air. Our opponent could equip Ornithopter instant speed with a hammer. Let's get more totem armor. We have one totem. No, we already have 2 totem armors. That's fine. Get audacity. Alright, attack for 19 in the air. Hey, our opponent concedes. So we stumbled a turn by playing into the Spell Pierce, which was a little bit loose from me. As you can see, by playing double aura, we would have had pretty much enough. Let's assume they counter one of them. So we end up with no audacity on there, which drops 3 power. We still would have had a lethal in the air. So Daybreak was just a greedy and wrong play. Alright, so we can see Hammertime here. This is a mono white one. Let's go for a blue white one instead. So splashing for Spell Pierce, splashing for Lavinia and Mana League. Okay. It's all frustrating. Lavinia stops us from like Force of Vigor, which is really annoying. We can also see a removal in form of March, in form of Path to Exile, and of course our opponent's Shadow Spear will make us lose Hexproof. Guess another consideration is Gingerbrute could be a difficult to block creature, but I don't think we can do very much about that. Alright, so I like the look of Force of Vigor a lot in this matchup, and also Pithing Needle should have some playability. Activations on the Stoneforged Mystic, activations on the Inkmoth Nexus, activations on Shadow Spear. Even if they go for Pure Steel Paladin, activation on the Hammer. We got a lot of good stuff there. We're taking out our slow stuff with all the glitters, with Spirit Mantle, and then we're just taking out Cartouche, which does very little in this matchup, and one of Audacity and Spider Umbra, so we can still tutor for them if we need to. Maybe it was better to take out both Audacities instead of the Spider Umbra, just because Spider Umbra does enable our blocking. So here, this hand is pretty medium. I think we can do better. We don't have interaction. We don't have a hexproof creature. I like the fact we can block flyers, but that's not enough on a slow dried arbor hand. This hand looks a little bit better, but also a little bit slow. Let's go ahead and ditch Horizon Canopy. I think Windswept Teeth is just better to try and protect ourselves. Turn 1 Cigarda's Aid. Any 0 drops? Yep. You got it, opponent. Naturally, we find a Windswept Teeth off the top. Alright, so I guess we can be a little bit conservative with our life total here. Opponent 2 mana, Stoneforged Mystic. And they do find Colossus Hammer off that one. Playing another Ornithopter. And we do find Daybreak Coronet. So we just have to navigate one more turn here without dying, hopefully. We can't realistically hold up jump blockers here, so let's attack in and pray. Even if we were to look to block our opponent's creatures, they can instant speed the hammer on, because their Ornithopter has flying, so they can do this during blocker step, which means we don't get the block. Plays Urza's Saga. Activates Inkmoth, and that's going to be the victory. Alright, sure. Nothing we can do about that, but we can go to game 3 and we will be on the play, which will be helpful. So opponent does click on the right creature with their hammer, and that's fine. That's the loss to us, the victory to the opponent. Yeah, let's bring in the last Spider Umbra, taking out the Audacity. That should be fine. We'll just resubmit. We really want to leverage hard on Floofy because she has a turn 3 kill, and that is definitely something that you want against Hammertime. Alright, so we see this hand with Floofy plus Force of Vigor. I mean, I'm in love with this hand a fair bit. Let's go ahead and keep it. I think we probably hold the Scout and just win with Floofy. That's my plan anyway. Turn 1 Hammer and Ornithopter from the opponent. Another Ornithopter. So this is fine. No need to do anything there. We find Daybreak Coronet. So we're looking for another white mana here. We don't have turn 3 Keel here. You need Ethereal Armor, plus you need 3 1-mana auras in hand, and no combination of what we can draw to will get us there. Alright, opponent with Pure Steel Paladin now. Hammer equip on the Ornithopter. Alright, and no blocks from us. We will go ahead and force the Hammer, plus the Ornithopter, which is untapped. Hopefully that sets our opponent back enough for us to get there. Alright, so we take 0 damage. I guess land would be good, so we do find land. That's really nice. Sentinel's Eyes. Probably want to go for flying here. Though is it safer if we go for Spider Umbra? Spider Umbra plus Ethereal Armor gives 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 damage. Follow up of no evasion. I think we do Spider Umbra. And then Ethereal Armor should be fine, and then we can just Daybreak plus evasion and be good after that point. Alright, so let's go ahead and attack for 9. It's very unlikely they block with their Pure Steel Paladin. Alright, opponent takes the damage, going to 8 life. We find Arid Mesa, cracking, going for plains. Alright, and here is Shadow Spear. Okay. Drawing a card. Steel Shaper's Gift. Alright, I'm happy to see that. That's fine. Finding Colossus Hammer. So is our opponent gonna go on defense then? Alright, so Shadow Spear on the Paladin. Colossus Hammer on the Paladin. It's fine by me. And attacking. Okay. Well, we'll just take that. That's fine. This might be a bit of a longer game. Alright, and now they're transitioning across onto the Ornithopter, which makes a lot of sense. If we blocked and lost the Spider Umbra by blocking, they wouldn't be able to donate across to the Ornithopter without the Paladin dying. So I suppose we just go for flying. Maybe it's trample. Surely it's flying. It's guaranteed damage. We're looking pretty rough if they have the follow-up hammer though. Alright, so opponent down to 5. We're back up to 19. We still have 1 instance of totem armor, so we're okay. So the loss here would be your opponent playing March on our creature and exiling it. They're taking a little while to think, so I suppose they don't have it. And just drawing a card with the silent clearing there. And now they're attacking in with the Ornithopter, and we just have to block this. Again, if things go pear-shaped, we have Spider Umbra, but looks like they don't. Alright, so we mitigate their life gain because we have first strike and have removed their creature. And not surprisingly, the opponent concedes. So I think maybe we selected 1 aura wrong in the initial throwdown there. But, you know, we got there in the end. It's really showing the power of Floofy Paws and making the decision to leave that Glade Cover Scout in hand turn 1 to pitch to the Force of Vigor turned out to be a pretty strong decision. Alright, so here we are for the 5th and final match. We won the 5th die roll in a row this league. Hand looks good. We're going to keep the 7. And our opponent, Hintaro Hikori, is also keeping 7 cards. Alright, so turn 1, Bogle and pass. And opponent Steam Vents Shocked into Dragon's Rage Channeler. And, well, we don't have like a hugely amazing play here. I think we just search the forest, play the Floofy. Hopefully it doesn't die to removal, because if we equipped our Rancors onto our Bogle, we can't attack. We don't have First Strike, we don't have 2 Toughness. It's just not going to work. And looks like our opponent's wanting to hold up some description of interaction here. Start off with Rancor on the Bogle. See how our opponent responds. And they play out Counterspell. We're absolutely fine with that. Maybe I should have played the Audacity instead. Well, let's go in on Floofy now. Our opponent's pretty tapped out. Let's go. Don't mind if we do. Oh, our opponent just concedes. Alright, they've seen enough. So the Izzet Murktide one matchup is, I think it's fairly even. It can be pretty difficult to play in because they have a lot of like 1-ofs and 2-ofs in the main deck. So here on this list we can see 1-of Brazen Borrower, we can see 1-of Dress Down, also sometimes Blood Moons in the main deck as well. And all these cards require very different sideboard slots and can be difficult to play into, right? So outside of that, we know that our opponent will make our creatures lose Hexproof with Dress Down. Then they can try and burn it out with Lightning Bolt, with Unholy Heat. They have permission in form of Counterspell and Spell Pierce, which is pretty normal. And you need explosives in the sideboard as well as something to keep in mind. So we don't have a huge amount of cards that we actually want to remove here. I'm going to definitely bring in our Force of Vigors. I think we just take out some of our 2-mana auras. And I think probably 2 Force of Vigor is plenty. I want to keep in our Floofy Paws in case our opponent sweeps the board. And then it gives us a good way to reload. Cartouche seems good into Cartouche Solidarity seems good into Ragavan. Turn 2 we could get a chump blocker for their Ragavan. We see there's 7, opponent mulligans to 6. I think this hand is just keepable. We have 2 really awkward green mana sources here and all white auras in hand. But on the balance, I think we've got a pretty reasonable hand here. Turn 1, Ragavan from the opponent. It looks like they kept a 6-card hand. Bogle, not what we want. So lead on Temple Garden. And just look to pass the turn here. Oh, wow. Subtlety from the opponent. Well, I actually want this on the bottom because we got more creatures. Subtlety pitching Spell Pierce. Spicy. That's, I think in about 8 matches of versing Murktide, that's the first time they've done the Subtlety line against me. In with Ragavan. We could get turn 2 Blood Moon here. That would be, well, me conceding, right? I mean, Dried Arbor can pitch to a Force of Vigor, but it's unlikely. Opponent does find the Razor Verge Thicket. That's annoying. We find the Horizon Canopy. That's good. It is pretty likely. Wow, you've just got the Counterspell opponent. Come on, man. Just calm it down, alright? Yikes. Alright, that's an awkward spot to be in. No cards in hand. That is it so far. Consider. Alright, Surveil. So, surveilling the Scalding Tarn to the graveyard. Or is it Dragon's Rage Channeler to the graveyard, pardon me. Ragavan trigger, finding a Force of Vigor. Yeah, go ahead and cast that one, opponent. Plains. Alright, well, we're going to be put into an awkward spot here. And that awkward spot is going to be relying on this little old Dried Arbor, which is a very vulnerable creature. But we're going to get it out of the range of Lightning Bolt now. We just have to worry about that Unholy Heat. Interestingly, no counter magic from the opponent. They play out Spy Bluff Canal. Attacking in the air will take the damage. Going down a little bit lower. And another Daybreak Coronet. Alright, well, we'll give our opponent the chance to counter this one. Guess the chance to remove the creature in response as well and like 4 for 1 us. Alright, so they counter with Archmage's Charm. That is fine. Means they're not drawing 2 cards with Archmage's Charm, which I am fine with. And we have instant speed Bisayu here in face of a Blood Moon. Expressive iteration from the opponent. Alright, so Surveil 1 card to the top with the Dragon's Rage Channeler ability. And we see Consider into exile with that. So Consider is getting cast now. Cool. Mishra's Bobble, sure. Can see Legislator has been put to the graveyard by one of their effects. Surveil. And Mishra's Bobble targeted us. Alright, so opponent gonna attack in the air for 3 damage here. Alright, and we're gonna go ahead and take that. That puts us to 4 life. Nice thing about Dried Arbor is it can't be bounced by Brazen Borrower. It's the one strength it has, really. Hyena Umbra. So let's start by playing up beside you. This will help us play around Spell Pierce and still be able to attack. Alright, now that that's resolved, let's put our Totem Armor down. Cool, an attack for 10. Don't mind if I do. Opponent takes it? Wow. I would think blocking with the Ragavan would be a priority, but maybe I'm wrong. We're in a really strong spot now. So opponent forced into attacking with the Dragon's Rage Channeler. We go back down to 10. So a weakness to our opponent not blocking with Ragavan in the previous turn is if we to draw a trample effect here or a Griff Spoon and it resolves, suddenly they're dead. Because there was no trample on the creature at that point in time, 0 cards in hand, I think blocking 10 damage to maybe prevent a 12 or 13 damage attack in the future should have been something considered. Oh, that is disgusting, opponent. Spends about 2 minutes in the second phase, cast Engineered Explosives on 1, and that's going to wipe out our Daybreak Coronet as well. That's pretty disgusting. So they're on 4 life, 2 mana aura, a 2 mana aura, and we win. Find Horizon Canopy. Let's cycle the 1 on the board. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. So Sentinel's Eyes in the grave. Rancor from hand onto the battlefield. Our creature could die to a lightning bolt here, but the way the turn seems like it's been 6'd. Doesn't happen. We get the win. We get the 4-1. Another victory against Murktide. Huge result. So yeah, another solid performance from the modern deck here. I think we've regained about a 70% win rate on the deck after it dropped to around 60. So that's a really good sign for the archetype. I need to go back and track my matches and find out what win percentage we're actually at, because I did lose track of that. So Spider Umbra in the main deck, I don't think I loved it. I don't think I hated it. I think it requires more testing. Didn't seem like it really hurt too much going down from 4 copies of Audacity to 2 copies. Only other consideration is maybe reintroducing Alpha Authority to the main deck as a one-off, as a method of giving our Floopy Paws hexproof. So that I don't know if it's good or bad. I honestly don't. I think it requires more testing. It depends on how heavy we want to leverage on Floopy Paws and how much removal there is for Floopy. Obviously, Spirit Mantle gives protection from creatures, i.e. protection from Evoke Elementals. So that's something, but actual hexproof is something to consider as well. It's less good into Shadow Spear, but into Dress Down, Spirit Mantle and Alpha Authority do just as little as each other. So with the sideboard, I mean, we saw play for Leyline of Sanctity. We saw plenty of action for Force of Vigor, so that's still justified there. We did take the victory against Hammertime, so go team. I mean, Chalice and Void Mirror are in there for very, very specific reasons, so it makes sense that we're not going to bring them into a huge number of matchups. We did have Deafening Silence, which we were boarding in against Izzet Murktide for a little while there. It turned out that that wasn't a very good interaction because they can end step the Dress Down, and then the following turn they can remove your creature with Unholy Heat or with Lightning Bolt. So rather than going for the Deafening Silence to help protect against that, we're going for more main deck Totem Armor effects, and the Totem Armor applies to the aura, not to the creature. So in response to your creature being removed, the Totem Armor will trigger, the Spider Umbra, the Hyena Umbra will sacrifice. You get to choose which one as well, and you're not forced to sacrifice multiples. You can just choose which one to sacrifice in that spot. So yeah, another solid league for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. It seems like we're in a really, really good spot. So I hope you're farming tickets. I hope you're farming prizes at your LGSs. Until next time, guys, have a great day. I'll catch you then.